All right, well, we'll start with the buyer contract, because we've already kind of gone over the buyer stuff, so you've got a feel for that, and we'll move on to the seller. So I just went through here, just like if you were writing a contract, for a buyer, and I did an FHA loan on this one. So an FHA loan, you need like 3.5% down. We're just gonna go with that scenario. An FHA, 3% down for your buyer. You've got the buyer, and you're trying to get them the best deal on a house. You're trying to spend the least amount of money for your buyer, okay? You're a great agent. You're the best agents in the state of Texas. Don't ever forget. So I assume that they want to exclude their this was in the MLS, that they want to exclude the curtains, the rods, and the TV mounts. So you're going to put that in exclusions because you're nice and you're going to go through that and do that. It's really important that you get the property information right, the lot, the block, at the addition, the city, the county, and known as. Be sure you're buying the right property for your buyer. We've already been through that. So down here under sales price, be sure you check third-party financing addendum. That's a box you just click in zip forms. And then you'll have talked to the lender, you'll talk to the buyer and find out how much they're gonna put down, because even if it's FHA, sometimes they wanna put more down than 3.5%. It depends on kind of what their credit is, things like that, on what type of loan they're gonna do, but the lender will have told you. But basically they'll do 3.5%. So that's what I've figured here. So the sales price of the house is $197,000. They're gonna put 3.5% down, so that's where I get these numbers. And I did this math. The lender's not gonna do the math for you, but y'all can do that math. That's pretty simple. And then I did $1,500 earnest money, but basically you wanna do 1%. But I'm trying to get my buyers in there for the least amount because I'm their agent. So I made you a little note there, and then I always try to close at Ranger Title, so I put that in there. And then the title policy amount is set by the state. That doesn't change. That's always the same. Okay, next page. I want to let the seller, if they have a survey, they can provide the survey. But if they don't, or if the survey is not acceptable, I want the seller to pay for a new one. I don't want my buyers to have to pay for a new one. So I check the sellers on that box. And then down here, you'll see on objections, my sellers have told me someday they might want to put in a pool. So I put swimming pool here. Remember, that's your CYA paragraph right there. And then I gave myself 6 days to cure anything in here. So that means if something's wrong with the survey, or we've got 6 more days to look at that and to go argue about it or whatever, or terminate the contract. But always put a number there. The more, when you have the buyer, the better. So if you've got the seller, you're wanting a lower number there. If you've got the buyer, you want the higher number there. And the property is not in an HOA. This box is always easily missed. Remember I told you that? So you, as the listing agent or the buyer's agent, you need to check, be sure you watch for that box down there, because that's really easy to not see that. Okay, we're gonna skip this page. We've already been over that. Now we're on page 4. And they haven't, this agent did not put the seller's disclosure in MLS, so we're gonna give them 2 days to give it to us. And I don't always bug the other agent to get it, because I know I've got the buyer here. And if I haven't received that within the 2 days, then I can terminate this contract at any time. So if I think that there's anything going on with my buyer that they might want to get out of this, then I know I've got an out if I haven't received it. And numerous times I have not received it in the time prescribed per the contract, and I could have gotten my buyer out if they
But you
wanted
don't have to.
But I don't have to. But if they had needed to get out for any reason, I could have used that.
Even if you were like 15 days in?
Yeah, anytime. The day before, 5 minutes before closing, I just said, we're terminating this contract. We're not, I mean, of course, you don't really want to do, everybody benefits from going to closing. You're making money,
Yeah, sure.
I mean, you don't really want to do that. But if something horrible came up for them and they call you crying and they need to get out, I mean, you have an out. I mean, you do eventually want to get it. So on day 3, I'm going to be going, hey, I need the seller's disclosure. But per the contract, I didn't get it. So I can still get them out, but I'm going to get the disclosure eventually for them so they can see it. But okay, Now, on 7D1, we always check buying the property as is, unless there's just something that they really want fixed. But remember, I explained that to y'all, that if you ask in there, so they want the windows and the roof repaired, they're not gonna think you're gonna ask for any more repairs after you do inspections. So that's kind of a tricky thing to do, to ask for repairs or treatments right there. So I kind of steer clear of that, if you can. Sometimes it's good to go ahead and ask for them if it's just blatant and you know it. But that's what we amend after inspections, that paragraph. Then you're on to page 5, and we're gonna ask for a $600 home warranty because we have a buyer, we want them to get a good home warranty. That's something that you give them the list to shop for, and you say, hey, you've got to tell me what you want before closing, and then you can call the home warranty company or go online and order that for them because they usually give us a better deal. Like, we get a discount.
Mm-hmm.
And then the closing date is something you always want to check with your buyer and the lender about. Remember, that's something that y'all need to talk about. And then when you've got the buyer, you would like to close upon closing and funding, but a lot of times you will do a temporary residential lease back. If you go to show a property and it is vacant, then you can always check closing and funding because they don't have anything to move out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's okay. And then you'll look at paragraph 12. This happens to be my favorite paragraph. I love to ask for closing costs because that is less money that they have to bring to the table. You don't want that's if they have the money and you've put closing costs in there, then that's $7,000 less that they have to bring, and they could go buy furniture or paint. If they wanted paint or new carpet, whatever. So I try to always put a number in there, unless it's a super competitive market. So I'm asking for them $7,000 worth of closing costs on this contract. And then you can talk to the lender. I mean, they might still have to come to closing with money. On this particular contract, they would have to come with $2,000. If on this one, I am doing this one, by the way, I've just changed the names. They're gonna have to come with $2,000 because they're doing a bond. So their down payment's covered. I've done $7,000 in closing costs. So then they have $2,000 to bring. So that's what they're getting all into this house for.
And it's agreed on. I mean, that's
No, it's not agreed on. I'm fighting for it right now.
okay.
They came back at $2,000 in closing costs, and I said no. So they have to have them. So they said, well, will they come up on the house price any? I said no. So we'll see where it goes for them. And then I get silent. A lot of times I just quit talking, and then they start coming back to you. They're like, well, hey.
How about this?
So, yeah, they try to get your attention. So then you skip a few pages, and page 7, you want to fill in notices. I don't know the seller's information because I've got the buyer. So we're going to pretend like it's my husband, and I put his information there. There's always one or the other that you will have contact with and that will talk to the title company. In our situation, it's really not my husband, it would be me. But you put the contact, you want to put their name. I didn't put it in here, I'm sorry. I always put CC agent, I put my email there. You put their name and their phone number and their email. Because that way, the title company has somebody to talk to. Without that, they have no way to contact your buyer.
So where do you put CC agent?
On this line right here.
Right under the name?
Right
Okay.
under the name. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'll write CC agent. And then you want to be sure you go down here and check which addenda you've put on here. Sometimes I have a whole bunch of these checked. For this contract, you only have the third-party financing addendum checked. And then you go to the next page, and we've got our option fee. So I'm trying to get the least amount for them because I've got the buyer. So we're putting $100 for 7 days, and it will be credited to the buyer at closing. If they terminate, they're not going to get that money back, but when they close, it'll get credited to them. And remember, the last person to sign, so if I submit this offer, they accept it, and they sign an initial, that agent's going to date this.
Okay.
If they have some changes and they send it back to me and my people initial them, I'm going to date it, and then I will circulate it. I'll get it to the title company, I'll get it to the lender, I'll get it to everybody. But you need to make sure you get it to the lender. It's very, very important. If you don't know their lender, then you say, I need your lender's email address, I need your lender's phone, you get all their you should have all their information anyway, but be sure you get I mean, like I've got a realtor.com zip code, that I pay for. Sometimes I just run out and I'll show a house. I mean, that's what this is. So I'll run out and I'll go show a house and I don't have their lender's information. I'm like, hey, I need all that information so I can get them this contract once it's executed. And then please be sure and fill all this out. It shows and you will see so many agents don't do this. It's really frustrating for the title company and the lender and everybody if this information is very needed. So make sure all your information is filled out, and you get this from the MLS listing.
The other,
Yeah, it's straight from MLS. And then you'll see what commission's being paid from the MLS sheet, and that's where you fill in this number, the 3%. We are not parties to the contract, so this isn't binding on anybody. I mean, if that's not filled out, it's not like you're not gonna get paid, because we are not parties to the contract. And then on the receipt page, the option fee receipt, remember the seller or the listing broker fills, when I say listing broker, you are an agent of your broker. So you or your broker fills this out, not you, the listing agent or the seller fills receipts this in, the title company. So you, as the buyer's agent, will not fill out any of this. This will be blank.
okay.
So when I was new and I didn't know anything, I typed in all these little numbers here. Being so thorough, so don't do that.
You just helped somebody out.
Well, I did. I wanted to save them some trouble.
Exactly.
But I'm helping y'all out. I'm going to make y'all look like you've been there and done this before. And then on the third-party financing addendum, this is really confusing. This is why I did a FHA for y'all, because there's no way you would probably remember this from school because you went to school to learn how to pass the test. So this is FHA. So it's always 203B. So you put in 203B unless you're doing a home improvement with it, this FHA, then it's 203K. But you probably won't do that. If you do that, you're gonna have a lot of conversations with the lender about that. So you'll always put 203B in there, and then the number that goes in here for the loan amount is less the down payment. So that's where I get the 190, 105 number. So that's less the down payment. And then you're gonna put in a higher interest rate than what is the actual interest rate, because you're covering that it won't be less than what their interest rate is. If anything happens to the rate and the rate goes up, because they can terminate because of this. If the interest rate is above what you've written in here, they can terminate. So you wanna make sure you do a little bit higher number than what you think the interest rate might be. So interest rates now are around 4.8. So
And the lender tells you that.
Yeah, well, yeah, and you just kind of know what the market is. Like, that's something you watch. You'll watch. So I put in 6 right now because I don't know what their credit is exactly. So just to cover myself, I put in 6. And then it's unless you know that they're doing a 15-year note, put in 30. And then the next number is 30. And then origination, I mean, the lender doesn't charge more than 1%. Put in 1 there. So that's fill that for you. And then you need to go down here and do approval of financing. So you'll check this first box, because this is subject to them obtaining approval. So the higher number of days here, when you have the buyer, the better. You're not gonna get away with 21 days very often. You can try it, but it's probably not gonna happen. They're gonna ask you to do 15, but you need to talk to the lender, and it kind of depends on how much information they have from the buyer. 18 is a good number. Some agents will say, well, I want 12 in there. Well, that's just shooting themselves in the foot. So try for 15 or 18. And you need to tell your buyer, you've got to get your paperwork in, because you only have 15 days to obtain financing approval.
So when they come with the pre-approval letter, or does that not?
No,
Okay.
no.
Because I would think, well, why would you need this long if they had that letter?
No, the letter is a pre-qualification letter, and you'll see on the letter what the lender has looked at. Like, they might have checked credit, they might have verified employment, but at that point, they haven't verified everything.
Okay,
So pre-qualification and pre-approval are two different things.
okay,
So we will meet with the lender and talk about all of that and let them go over that in
Okay.
detail. Pre-approval is better than pre-qualification.
okay,
So that's what you want, but sometimes, like, I showed this house to these people that had not talked to a lender, but I told you all I'd do that. They've talked to a lender, they do qualify, they're getting all their paperwork in now, but they still need to finish, and they need time to finish. And if it comes down to it and they don't actually qualify, well, I can get them out
because of
and get their earnest money